Hello and welcome to another Light Reading podcast. My name is Phil Harvey. I am an editor here at Light Reading.
And I'm Maggie Hallbach. I'm president of Verizon Frontline.
Maggie, thank you so much for giving us a bit of your time today, because you've got quite a bit on your plate as we're coming up to we're in Super Bowl week already. Mm-hmm. Super Bowl is this Sunday, and we're recording this in the middle of the week. But yeah, thanks for making the time. I do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I am excited about talking about what we're doing here today.
Yeah. And in fact, we can get right into it, because I think part of the context of the big game now is everything that's happening around the big game and how we tell people about it and how we communicate, and also how we mark the moment, like in sharing videos and taking selfies, and then if you're a gambling degenerate like me, getting all the information, from your fantasy teams and stuff like that. So it all kind of centers around our ability to stay connected throughout the experience the entire time. So I guess the first place we ought to sort of start is especially as it relates to the business of keeping people not just connected, but what Frontline does, with the command center and sort of assisting, emergency personnel and first responders, is what kind of mobile network resources, either temporary or permanent, are you unleashing for this Super Bowl in the Phoenix area?
Yeah. So I am coming to you from Phoenix and the Verizon Frontline Network Command Center. So we have an entire staff 24/7 with eyes on all of the infrastructure, not just in the venues, not just within the city of Phoenix, but also in the surrounding public spaces and the surrounding communities. The Phoenix metro area is huge. It is a very, very rapidly growing community. And Verizon has a 3-decade relationship with public safety in and around the Phoenix metro area. And we plan these Super Bowls and the preparation literally the minute that the host city becomes announced. And that is typically 2 years out. Right. And we have been at this for a long time. And so we've been working to plan this for the past 2 years. We've spent over $100 million over the past couple of years just in augmenting the infrastructure in State Farm Stadium, in the convention center, all up and down the main corridors within the city of Phoenix, but then out into more suburban areas like the outlying areas of Glendale and Mesa and Tempe and Scottsdale and Chandler, the list goes on. So it's a big geographic area, and we take our responsibility very seriously in providing the best communications and capacity and coverage for our first responders, so that when you get into the big game or you're experiencing something out at NFL Live or even heading over to the Waste Management Open, you have the best experience, while our first responders get a very unique experience that prioritizes their services and makes sure that when the data feeds and the calls need to go through, that they make it through.
Yeah, that's great. That is one of the things, the scale of it is always interesting to me. There's two sort of elements of the scale that you kind of outline there. The first, of course, is the Super Bowl itself. Huge amount of people in a relatively small space, tens of thousands of people, all kind of, crammed together watching the game itself. But all that time leading up to the game, for those of you listening or watching, when you're in the DFW area, if you've ever been here, it's Phoenix area is very similar to that, in that it just goes on forever, and you could fit entire states in the Phoenix metro area. Like you you ticked off names of all the Chandler, Tempe, Scottsdale, all the cities that are standalone cities that are still considered the Phoenix Metro. DFW is the same way. We've got Plano, Frisco, Allen, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a pretty daunting task, I would imagine, to not just make sure it's all adequately covered, but to make sure that that there's constant sort of monitoring of that network. So you've got just the cost of just the network assets themselves, to augment what's already there, but which is going to vary from place to place. But then you've also got the ability to watch over all that, make sure that the quality is high enough, make sure that the service is always on. Is there something that, can you talk to us a little bit about the needs of first responders at an event like that and how they differ from the fans in the stands? And I don't really mean that from well, duh, Phil, they're EMTs or whatever, but I mean, although that is a kind of dumb question I would ask, but I also mean it from a networking resources, like what types of things do they need on the network that when I'm just uploading dumb videos of myself, like that aren't really that important. How does that differ from, the kind of the immediacy of sort of what they require?
Yeah, I mean, I'll actually speak about some of the situations with fire and EMS. So the city of Phoenix and 26 surrounding municipalities actually participate in an entire geographic partnership where when you call 911 with an emergency, the city of Phoenix and those 26 jurisdictions collaborate, and they will dispatch the closest unit, most available unit, or the right technology unit. That does not happen on a piece of paper and a pencil, right? That is all coming through the fact that Verizon Frontline is communicating and connecting these districts together, is allowing data to transmit across these various jurisdictions to ensure that, for instance, the calling number, the location of the caller, we call that Allie and Annie information, is making it through. Any kind of pertinent details, for instance, if it's an accident on the freeway, how many potential injuries might be there so that they know how many ambulance to dispatch. That kind of information requires data, right? So when we think about communication, sometimes we always think about voice communication. Increasingly, and I would say to a large majority, the communication is data communication, where information is being automatically downloaded onto tablets, going onto mobile data terminals or command terminals that are then presenting situational awareness. It could be the diagrams to a building. It could be the geographic location of an injured person. And that information then speeds response so that not only are you getting there faster, but you're getting there with the right tools and technology on board your fire vehicle or your EMT vehicle to ensure that you can be most effective in your response. So that's just a quick example of how it might be a bit different than what a fan is experiencing at State Farm Stadium.
Yeah, definitely a different need for different kinds of network resources, and it's amazing that they have that kind of access, and that the information, I guess, is parsed in such a fine-grained manner, because it does need to, like, especially when you're dealing with, like I said, the scale and the size of a place like that, you can't afford to make a mistake and be like, oh, we forgot that. Let's go back to the station and pick that up or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like, it's life or death situations, or it's potential unknown situations. So you need to, have it right the first time. Which, by the way, I hope this is, my hope for the week, and then a few days leading up to the big game is that nobody needs anything, and that it's all just nice to have, and it goes as smoothly as possible without a single need to test the capabilities in real time. But obviously there's like you said, there's a timing window, 2 years between the time the sites are announced and the time the game happens. What's the investment risk from your point of view in putting all of this infrastructure in place temporarily, and then how much, or does any of it sort of stay behind? In other words, once you kind of start investing in the network in a specific city, um, how do you decide sort of what's stuff that's just going to augment what's there, and then what is just kind of more of a capital investment that says, what, this needs to be better along the way?
I would say that all of this is an investment in the community, in this infrastructure. This is all permanent investment.
Okay.
What we're seeing is just a dramatic change in the way that fans want to experience a game. So what's very interesting is, and we've seen this, as you know, we have a very long-standing relationship with the NFL. This is
Yeah.
not our first Super Bowl run-up. We've
Right.
been doing it for multiple years, and we've
Mhm.
learned a lot through those multiple Super Bowls. At the same time, the technology is evolving, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
just 5 years ago, we didn't have 5G, right? And
Right.
so what we are seeing is not only changes in the way that our first responders are communicating back with headquarters and their command staff with each other, cross jurisdictionally, or even across agencies. Phoenix Fire needs to communicate with Phoenix Police in order to, for instance, close roads and that type of thing.
Right.
But we're also seeing a change in consumer behaviors and expectations. And so a lot of crowdsourced information, because everyone is carrying a very high powered computer in their pocket nowadays.
Yeah.
And the desire to pivot from just an inward looking event to now having it be propagated out. I want to share with my friends and family the experience I'm having at NFL Live, or at a concert, or at some other kind of sporting event.
Yeah.
That's the type of changes that we're seeing in the way that not only consumers are using the technology, but also the way that first responders are communicating with one another, and the need to continue to augment capacity and coverage on the network. Because it's really amazing the speeds and the throughputs that you can see with some of the 5G technologies that have been deployed in and around the Phoenix area and are
Mhm.
continuing to be deployed nationally for many, many cities and communities to take advantage of.
Yeah, at some point I've got to get, just as a personal curiosity, I've got to get on the other side of what frontline workers are seeing when it comes to crowdsourcing, photos and videos from an event or a specific thing, because that's a great point you bring out. That is adding a very valuable information, but as it's coming in, I'm sure it's needle in a haystack kind of thing, because it's a flood of information. Lots of people, when something is happening, like say uh, somebody's having engine trouble and a car catches on fire, you get 50 people sending up a video to social media, but there's no context to it at all,
Mhm.
and maybe somebody on the emergency worker side of things could see that and immediately know, oh, it's this kind of fire. We need this kind of equipment, something like that.
Well, so what we are seeing is with the advent of technologies like 5G, we can actually use uh, text to 911, video communication into 911 centers to actually provide that situational awareness. We also
Right.
know over time that the amount of time it's taking law enforcement offices to parse through a lot of data. I'll mention the Boston Marathon bombing as an example.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so it took about 3 days for Boston PD to assimilate all of this social media information that they were receiving from the community. We're
Right.
now seeing with artificial intelligence the ability to compress the amount of time that it's taking to sort through that data. Machines are much, much faster at being able to find signatures than human beings are combing through, series of pictures or video feeds. That's
Right.
the type of use case where you actually see time to resolution of an incident really shortening much, much more rapidly with this new technology, because you have higher bandwidths that support things like video. You have the ability to do processing of this data at the edge of the network, so much, much closer to where the actual data resides, and then being able to provide insights back into dispatch centers, back into investigative units, so that they
Right.
can then take that information and be much, much quicker and more
Yeah.
agile in their response.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I want to circle back to one more point before I let you go, which was the point of, thanks to Frontline and other, kind of communications efforts by Verizon, your EMT from Mesa can now communicate seamlessly with, let's say, the Phoenix Sheriff's Department or something like that. Whereas in the past, we know that had been always a sticking point with first responders and law enforcement. They were on, let's say, two different radio manufacturers' frequencies, or the end network was owned by this guy, and then their network was owned by somebody else. How's has it been a long time coming that sort of seamless communication is sort of uh, possible, or do we still have some ways to go? Like what's where is it in kind of the what's the sort of status update for interdepartmental communication? Because I know that the being the kinds of agencies they are, they're very protective of their turf and very competitive with one another naturally, um, but they also are uh, necessarily cooperative, on a grand scale. How do you guys, sort of uh, play on both sides of that at the same time?
Yeah, the Phoenix area is a real best in class kind of
Mm.
cooperative and collaborative environment. It's actually Maricopa County Sheriff, and then
Uh-huh.
the City of Phoenix Chief for police. Um,
Right.
and the partnership with the 26 jurisdictions that have this kind of mutual aid, it does require a change in the way that you actually set up your business processes. So all of these public safety agencies have processes and protocols and policies that they follow. And
Right.
what this Phoenix metro area has been able to accomplish is really a type of collaboration that I would characterize as best in class. And many other communities aspire to do the exact same thing. But what's exciting is we've been able to prove in partnership with these agencies that it can be done, that it does speed response, that it ensures that you don't have misdirected fire trucks or misdirected ambulances. It really creates a single pane of glass for emergency professionals in the Valley area to respond to whatever nature of emergency that you might have. And so, what I would say is the technology is keeping pace with the goals and objectives of many of these first responder communities across the United States. Verizon has the opportunity to partner with over 30,000 agencies across federal, state, and local first responder communities. And we take that very, very seriously. We are the kind of communications partner that actively listens. We learn from incidents. We plumb that back into our technology solutions and our roadmaps so that we're always trying to improve the experience for our first responders. So we're really excited about what we've done here in Phoenix. We think it will showcase Phoenix and the Phoenix metro area in a really, really positive light. Whether it's leading up to Super Bowl or after the Super Bowl, people are going to want to keep coming to the Phoenix metro area because it's going to be such a fantastic experience.
Yeah, the early reporting. Thank you for that, because the early reporting is that people, especially media people that are there that I follow, are having a good time. They are finding it easy to get around and stay connected. They're not complaining about not being able to file their stories and
That's
get to
good.
their stations on time and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean that is a thing too. Is that the feedback's instantaneous nowadays? So it's like as soon as you get to a host city and things are things are not not working out so well, you tend to hear about it. You know. Multiple times a day on the run up to a big event like that. Well, again, I wish you tons of luck. Do you have any particular rooting interest in this game? Is it just you're just rooting that the network stays up and everything else can
Well,
do whatever?
I am definitely rooting for my team here in the Verizon Frontline Network Command Center. These
Yep.
men and women are totally committed. They're working 24/7. They are committed to making sure our first responders get the quality communication capability that they need, but they're also committed to the fans and making sure that the NFL and the city of Phoenix demonstrate that this is a great venue with a great place to come. So that's who I'm going to be rooting for.
That's who you're rooting for. That's fair enough. As long as you didn't say Eagles, I'm cool with that. So very good. All right, Maggie Hallbach, thanks so much. I knew I would get myself in trouble. I couldn't resist. I was gonna, man. And now my inbox is filling up
That's
right
right.
now. All right. Well, Maggie Hallbach, thanks so much for doing what you do and for appearing on our podcast. I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Phil. Appreciate you having me.